On the day when Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to his wife, Peninnah, and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah, he gave a double portion because he loved her, though the Lord had closed her womb. Her rival used to provoke her severely to irritate her because the Lord had closed her womb. So it went on year by year. As often as she went up to the house of the Lord, she used to provoke her. Therefore Hannah wept and would not eat. Her husband Elkanah said to her, "Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart sad? Am I not more to you than 10 sons?" The opening chapter of 1 Samuel is all about the birth of the prophet Samuel and how God brought it about and saved his mother Hannah from the shame and scorn of being an infertile woman. It is an amazing story, full of hope and possibility, but I don't think you can really appreciate the good news in that story without understanding just how messed up that opening scene really is. It shows us just how dysfunctional that particular family was. What's more, I think it may be a reflection of the human family in general and how we often deal badly with the challenges and problems that come with life in this world. So let's look at that story. Let's spy on this family as they prepare to eat their portions. This is Retelling the Bible. Episode 8.25. What happened to Rambo? A family travels down the road on the way to a place called Shiloh. The whole family comes. The father is Elkanah, and he brings with him both of his wives, Peninnah and Hannah. And yeah, he has to, because that's just how things are done in this world. And he also brings with him his sons and his daughters, all of whom are the children of his wife, Peninnah, because, it seems, Hannah cannot have children. These, together with household servants and extended family, make a very large company traveling down the road. There's another companion that has joined in the journey. They have brought with them a young ram. They have raised this animal all year on their little farm. It has been part of their family ever since its birth. They have nurtured it, taken it out to graze, and kept it safe from any predators. They have loved this animal. The children even gave him a name. Rambo, they called him. But at the same time, they have never forgotten that they raised this animal for one purpose only: for this sacrifice. It is a holy thing when this happens, when a living being gives its life so that a family can eat and be strong. That is why they do it so rarely, often no more than once a year. That's also why they are going to Shiloh, for it is a temple of Yahweh. The sacrifice must be carried out in such a holy place. When they arrive at the temple complex, they take the ram to the old priest, Eli, who inspects it and declares that it is healthy and fit for a sacrifice. The whole family approaches and lays their hands on the head of Rambo, giving thanks to God for this bounty and to the animal itself, as the priest draws the blade across its throat. Later, after Eli has taken the animal and butchered it properly, the family gathers around the altar. Those parts that the family will not eat, the fat, the blood, and a number of the organs and other bits, are burnt in the fire. That is how Yahweh, the God of Israel, joins the family in their feast. It creates a precious fellowship with God, making everything all the more holy. But then what happens? Elkanah, the patriarch of the family, is given the rest of the meat, all perfectly cut and arranged on a slab. And they take it and put it in one of the great cauldrons that are provided for the worshippers at Shiloh. They boil up the meat with various herbs and vegetables that they have brought with them to create a hearty stew. But then comes that awkward moment. Elkanah, as patriarch, has the right to distribute the stew. After the priest has come to claim his portion as payment for safely slaughtering and butchering the meat, the family sits down on the grass, while Elkanah takes the rest and carefully doles out the portions. Into the bowl of his wife, Peninnah, he carefully ladles one big scoop. Then he goes on down the line to his sons and his daughters, and for each he measures out the same amount. Then he gives the same amount to each of the servants and workers and some extended family that have come along for the sacrifice. Finally, he comes to Hannah. He smiles at her for a moment, but it is kind of a sad smile. There seems to be some pity in it. And then he takes out the big bowl, much larger than any of the others, and places it before her. He fills it up with scoop after scoop of rich stew, before finally filling up his own bowl with a similar serving. So, how do you feel sitting at that feast? You smell the savory broth and you long to dig in and scoop up the meat that you have been craving for months. You can hardly control yourself. But hunger is not the only powerful feeling that is present, is it? You can practically feel the resentment seething from every person present as they cast baleful glances towards Hannah, where she sits. And Hannah, she is, if anything, more upset than anyone else. Large tears roll down her face as she stares at the stew before her, as if it were poison. She knows she should eat it, that she needs the meat as much as anyone. It should make her stronger, healthier. Who knows? It might even make her fertile. But she doesn't feel as if she can stomach it. How could she, when she knows that it causes Penina, who could be like a sister to her, to hate her? How could she when she knows that it puts a distance between her and the children whom she could love and care for under other circumstances? And worst of all is her husband sitting beside her, who, by the look on his face, thinks that he has done a wonderful thing. "Eat up, honey," he says as he shovels the food into his mouth. It's delicious. She knows what he's going to say next because he says it all the time. It always makes her cringe. "Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart sad? Am I not more to you than 10 sons?" But Hannah is not the only one who is miserable as they eat this meal. Think of Penina for a moment. She is a woman who is able to do the one thing that women are valued for in that society. She can have children, and she is valued for what she can produce. And let's consider what that means for a moment. In our society, where everyone seems to be measured by productivity, there are many who seem to have decided that their entire self-worth is measured by how much they earn, their place on the corporate ladder, or their relative wealth. There are perils that come with such a way of thinking, aren't there? Penina may have fulfilled her purpose as seen in that society, but she doesn't seem particularly happy. Indeed, we are told that she torments her husband's other wife, Hannah. She used to provoke her severely, to irritate her, it says, because the Lord had closed her womb. Is that kind of aggression indicative of someone who is happy and has a well-balanced life? Of course not. She is one of those people who seem to have achieved success, as the world defines success, but they love to rub other people's noses in it. Why? Because they are trying to make themselves feel good by putting someone else down. And if you need to put somebody else down to feel good about yourself, there is something wrong. There is something deep inside that is making you feel inadequate? What is making Penina feel that way? What she produces may be valued, but she is not valued for who she is. She is not loved. She, like so many others, is caught up in that mad scramble to earn love through what she produces. And if that is what you are looking for, then no matter what you do, no matter how good your work is, it will never be enough. Penina, sitting at that meal, is symbolic of the flaws of a society that values productivity over everything else. But then there is Hannah at the table too, isn't there? And she hardly seems better off. She has the love. Her husband claims to be devoted to her. So what is missing for her? She lives in a society in which women are really only given one way to contribute. And she is not able to contribute in that way. And so, though she is loved, she has been robbed of a sense of being significant. The two women in this story are miserable because some of their most essential needs are not being met. The need for love and the need for meaning. And the really odd thing about that is that they each have the one thing that the other wants most. It is so easy, isn't it, when you are struggling in yourself, to look at something that somebody else has and to be jealous, to think that if only you had what they have, your life would be okay. But the mere fact that neither of these women is okay puts a lie to that way of thinking. The solution is rather to work on yourself, to aspire towards what is truly meaningful to you, to be sure. But it is also to recognize that the reason why you feel inadequate is not because you are inadequate, but rather because the expectations that have been placed upon you are baloney. How much happier would both Penina and Hannah be if they just realized that? And now, let us turn to the third so-called adult at the table, Elkanah, the patriarch of the family. I've got to say that I am not particularly impressed with his efforts to improve anything about the whole situation. His favoritism to Hannah only sets her apart from everyone else who might give her support. And when he says, "Am I not more to you than 10 sons?" he somehow manages to make everything all about himself. He dismisses her needs and self-centeredly thinks that he can fulfill her all on his own. That, let me tell you, never helps somebody who is struggling. So, what is wrong with Elkanah? Why is he such an abysmal failure at bringing peace and functionality to his family? It is because he does not deal with the real issues at the table. He does nothing to address Penina's bitterness and anger, apparently thinking that if he ignores it, it will just go away. And when he sees Hannah's deep sadness, he does not help her to address the unrealistic expectations that society has put upon her. He does not even bother to assure her that her worth and value are not dependent on meeting those expectations. All he does is essentially try to make her put on a smiley face by bribing her with extra portions of meat and professions of affection. May I suggest that if you ever find yourself giving leadership to a family or other group that is malfunctioning in any way, do not follow the example of Elkanah. Do not make it all about yourself. Don't just try to deal with the surface issues, with the appearance of things. Don't assume that serious issues will just go away if you don't talk about them. Dig in. Get to the heart of the matter and the real hurts and wounds that people are carrying. I'm not saying that it will be easy. It might well feel more uncomfortable before it starts to feel better. But it is worth the effort and the discomfort. And so, we have 3 people feasting at Shiloh. None of them are happy. None of them are fulfilled. And I will bet that each one of us can find ways in which we, at some point in our lives, would have identified with at least one of them. They are a reflection of the dysfunction of this world and its ways. We never seem to want to dwell on that opening scene in the book of Samuel. We are in such a rush to get to the whole story of the birth of Samuel and what he is going to do. Samuel does bring hope. He seems to bring a new beginning to a troubling situation. But there is something that is just so real and human about the family that we meet at the beginning, the family that he came out of. Perhaps they are a reminder that hope comes out of dysfunction, that new beginnings come out of old failures. That is it for this episode of Retelling the Bible. Please subscribe so you can get the next regular episode in 2 weeks' time. And do rate and review wherever you download your podcasts. The theme music for the podcast is Ada by Kevin MacLeod. And the mood music for this episode was Polar Christmas by Sasha End. The music is licensed in the Creative Commons and can be found at incompetech.com and at filmmusic.io, respectively. You can contact me on Blue Sky at Retelling the Bible and on the Facebook page Retelling the Bible. Show notes for this episode have been posted at retellingthebible.wordpress.com. Thanks to my Patreon supporters again. You guys are the best. go to patreon.com/retellingthebible to support this podcast. This is Retelling the Bible, and I have been your storyteller, W. Scott McCandless.